All right, guys, good morning. We have chapter 2.1 notes here. So we're starting to look at solving equations, okay? So we have the chapter 2.1 notes, and we're solving one-step equations. So these only take, obviously, one step to solve. Our goal is to solve one-step equations by using addition and subtraction. All right, and we're going to show you guys how to do that. So solving equations is similar to keeping a scale balance, okay? We always want to do one thing to one side. We want to do the same thing to the other side in order to keep things balanced at all time. Okay, that's what an equal sign does. An equal sign is saying that, hey, both sides are equal. All right, so we need to treat them that way. So the opposite of addition, so how do we undo addition? What is the opposite of addition? Well, that is going to be subtraction. So if the opposite of addition is subtraction, what do you think the opposite of subtraction is going to be? Well, it's going to be addition. All right, so those are the opposite of each other. So that's how we undo undo one another. Okay. So if we have a 5, how do we get 5 to become 0? Well, how do we get 5 to become 0? We take 5 away, right? So if we're going to add it, we subtract it back away, and that evens it out. All right. So if we look at this problem right here, we have y plus 14 equals 20. Now, some of you guys might look at this problem and be like, oh, I know what y is because I know that 14 plus 6 is 20. But our algebra is going to get a lot harder than that. So we have to really understand, how do we solve? How do we solve for y? Well, the first thing is we want to get this y isolated by itself. How do we get it isolated by itself? Well, we have to move everything from that side of the equation to the other side. And we need to do it evenly. We have to do it balanced, just like a scale. So we have to get rid of this 14. We have to physically move this 14 to the other side of the equation. Now, when we're taking it from one side of the equation to the other side, we have to do the opposite operation. So notice this is a positive 14. So we subtracted 14 from both sides, which when we did that, these will cancel out, right? Because a positive 14 minus 14 is now 0. So all we have is y. And then 20 minus 14 is 6. So in this situation, we know that y equals 6. That's what equals each other. All right. So we got some simple steps here. The first thing we're going to do is we want to isolate the variable. Remember, we always want to have our letter by itself. And then we want to make sure we check our answer. The nice thing with algebra is we can always take the answer that we found and put it back in. We can substitute it to find out if the answer comes out true. If it's true, we did it right. If it's false, we messed up. All right. So we have x plus 3 equals 5. Now, some of us right away might know what the answer to x is, but how do we solve that? Well, we want to isolate the x, so we have to get rid of this 3. So the opposite of addition is subtraction, so I'm going to subtract 3. Now, some of you guys might have drawn this line before. That some people enjoy doing that because it shows that there's two sides of the equation. All right, it's kind of like the bar in the middle of our scale, right? We have one part of the equation here and we have the other part here. So that's kind of like our line. All right. So if we subtract something from this side, we have to subtract it from this side. Well, after we do that, these should cancel out because 3 minus 3 is 0. You don't have to write 0 down. Remember, 0 is not even there, right? It represents nothing. So we can just put our x. We bring down our equal sign. And then we do this problem, 5 minus 3. Well, 5 minus 3 is 2. And so we have x equals 2. Now we can plug it back in to see if it's right. So does 2 plus 3 equal 5? So all we did was take this 2 and we put it back into the problem right here for x. And 2 plus 3 equals 5. That's a check. So we know we did that right. Ding, ding. All right. So now let's look at problem 2. Same thing. I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to say, okay, what do I have to isolate? I have to isolate my x. I need to get that x by itself. How do I get this x by itself? How do we get the variable by itself? Well, we need to do the opposite of the negative 5. What's the opposite of a negative? Well, it's a positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Plus 5 and plus 5. All right, when we do that, these will cancel out. It always should. If it doesn't, then we did something wrong. -5 plus 5 brings us back to 0. So we're left with x equals 10 plus 5 is 15. All right, now we'll double check that answer. Does 15 minus 5 equal 10? And 15 minus 5 does equal 10. So we'll give it a green check. All right, red check. All right, awesome, awesome. Next. Now this might be a little harder one to do in your head. All right, so that's why algebra is now a good thing to try. How do we get rid of a positive 7? Positive 7, well, we have to subtract 7. Okay. So we subtract 7. If we do it from one side, we always have to do it to the other side. We're keeping it balanced. All right. 7 minus 7 is 0, so we're left with x. We isolated the variable. Always the first step, isolate the variable. And then on the other side, we now have 4 minus 7. So that's where you have to make sure that you're doing your math right. And that's why this one's maybe a little harder to do as a mental math. Okay, so we have 4 minus 7, which is actually going to give us a negative number, which is -3. All right, now we want to check to make sure that works. So we have -3 plus 7 equals 4. Does -3 plus 7 or 7 minus 3 is another way you can say that? 7, 6, 5, 4. Yeah, that does work. And so we did all of our math right. So the nice thing is when we have a test on this or a quiz on this, you guys literally can check all of your answers to see if you did it right or not. You can actually almost grade your test before it's even over. Okay, we do have a special situation though. Okay, our special situation is what if we have a problem like this? Well, note what is different with this problem from the ones above it. Positive x, positive x, positive x, negative x. This is technically a -1x. All right, we cannot. So we need to solve for a positive. We need to solve for a positive x, not a negative x. So we need to either, you can do it both ways. You can either multiply or divide. You can either multiply or divide both sides by -1. Okay, and we'll show you why that works. But remember, a negative times a negative gives us a positive. A negative divided by a negative gives us a positive. And that is why we need to either multiply or divide both sides by a negative, so we always have a positive variable. Our variable, our letter, always needs to be positive in the end. All right. So remember, what we do to one side, we must do to the other side. So if we have an equation like this, 4 minus x equals 6, then the number 4 is positive, and the opposite of a positive is a negative. Okay, so the number 4 is positive, and the opposite of positive is a negative. All right. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we're going to want to do here is we want to subtract 4 from both sides. Subtract 4. Draw a line, subtract 4. All right. So 4 minus 4, which we should know, right, is going to cancel out. So those are gone. But now we don't just have x here. This is a big mistake. Look in front of that x. Yes, this is 4 minus x, but this is also a negative x. Okay, minus symbol is technically a negative symbol too. All right, so we have a negative x, and that equals, what is 6 minus 4? Well, 6 minus 4 is 2. Okay. And then normally we were done here, but whenever we see a negative variable, we have to get rid of that negative. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we can either multiply or divide both sides by -1. So I'm going to multiply. So if I multiply both sides by -1. I am just going to multiply by 1 by -1. Multiply by -1. Okay, you can also divide. I normally like to divide. So a negative times a negative. So -1 times a -1 is going to give us a positive x, which it should. That's the reason why we're doing this. And then a positive 2 times a -1 is a -2. So notice all that did is switch the two symbols. So this becomes positive and this becomes negative. And that's fine. That's all we want it to do. But now we have x equals -2. We can check our answer really quick. 4 minus -2 equals 6. Well, we know when two negatives, when a negative and a minus are touching, that becomes a positive. So is 4 plus 2. 4 plus 2 equals 6. And that is true. So we know we did our math correctly. All right, awesome. So what we're going to have you guys do on your notes, I'm going to do 2 more of these. We're going to have you finish the rest on your own. And then in class, we're going to put you guys in breakout rooms and we're going to have you check your answers with the rest of the people in your class. So this is the notes up here. And this is kind of like your homework, right? These guys are a little further down, but right there, okay? So we're going to have you guys do that. Now, this is a challenge question here. This is something we call as a 2-step equation. I would love to see all of you guys try this, okay? Because this ultimately is what we're going to be doing later, okay? And it's going to get a lot more advanced than that. But this is a 2-step equation. So try to do it. You can use even a little mental math to help you out. But everyone give this problem a shot, okay? I'm going to go ahead and do 2 of these problems. I'll just do 1 and 2. So I'm going to draw my line down the middle. I see this is a positive 6. Well, what's the opposite of a positive? Well, it's a negative. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. Okay. These should always cancel out, which they do. We are left with y, and 20 minus 6 equals 14. Now, in order to show all of our work, what we need to do is always plug it back in. So I'm going to do 14 plus 6 equals 20. Does 14 plus 6 equal 20? It is true. So I'm going to give myself a little check and we are good to go. We'll try 1 right here too. So how do we get rid of this -10? How do we move the negative to the other side? Well, we add it, right? We do the opposite. So we add 10 to both sides, add 10 to both sides. All right. These cancel out, which they always should. We're left with a positive x still. And then what is 12 plus 10? Well, 12 plus 10 is 22. Our variable is isolated. It's by itself. Our number is isolated. It's by itself. We are done right here. All we need to do is check our work. Is 22 minus 10 equal 12? And again, that is a check. All right. So the rest of these you guys are going to do on your own, and we're going to put you into breakout rooms, like I said, and you're going to check these answers with some of your classmates come class time. So good luck. Again, let us know if you guys have any questions.